Hey guys, welcome back to Mo's Game Table. Today I'm going to do a review on Europe Divided. This is a game designed by David Thompson and Chris Marling and published by Phalanx. I've got this on the table right now playing a two-handed solitaire game, and I had played some cards, got some influence out there, and I says, hey, I've got time. Let me break out the camera and shoot a review real quick so I can share my thoughts with you, let you know what I think about the game. At first glance, you're probably thinking the same thing I did. This is very reminiscent of Twilight Struggle, and in some ways it does have a similar vibe, but this game is its own animal. This is an area influence, area control game with small and simple conflict resolution between armies and an element of deck building that all mixed together to give us a pretty interesting and very thematic and very fun strategy game. Each player gets their own deck of cards, and there is another separate deck called the headline cards. You see them along the top of the board there. These are for scoring, and you'll have a clear view of what needs to be done in this turn and subsequent turns because they're laid out in that little tableau. You've got forthcoming cards and then the current cards. The current cards are what's going to be scored after both players play all their action cards for the turn. Then you score it, and either the player who has the prerequisites for the card will get that card. If they don't, it'll just be discarded, and then when you move the cards up next time, it'll just go up from the forthcoming to the current card. And so that way you know ahead of time what cards are going to be out there for scoring. The thing I like about that is the players determine which headline cards are going to be placed on every other turn because they're drawn from their own hand of headline cards, which each side has a deck of cards right there that you're going to draw from. So this helps you by allowing you to choose which cards are going to go out there based on how you're moving your influence across the map. It takes out the randomness of just having a random deck draw, and I think that's really cool because it gives the players some agency in creating kind of a scoring strategy as they go along. And I really, really like that. It makes the play less reactionary and more controlled by the player's own strategy. The cards for both players are multi-use, and in the case of NATO can be played for either the EU or NATO specifically, but not both. With these cards, you gain money, spend money to spread influence across the map, you increase your influence in countries where you already have a presence, or you build and move your armies. There are also some special advantage cards that you can do certain special actions with, but if you don't use them, you'll gain extra victory points at the end of the game, and sometimes they're worth holding onto, especially in a tight game. The Black Sea and the Baltic Sea are also in play. They have two special cards that will be given to the player that has regional control in those areas. Don't overlook those cards because they will definitely give you a needed boost either financially or militarily. So I know that when I was first playing, I kind of ignored those cards. Don't ignore those cards. They give you a nice little boost. Dice are used to represent the influence applied to each country. You see those dice that I've got out there on the table. This is done in similar fashion to how the influence counters work in Twilight Struggle. You will gain influence in a country by spending 2 coins to get into the country. You got to pay your way in, and then after that, you'll be using cards from your hand to raise the influence level up. For EU and NATO, that influence ranges from 1 to 4. For Russia, it's 1 to 3. That shows the economic strength of EU and NATO versus Russia, especially in this new Cold War. What you're trying to do in this game is twofold. First, you want to keep an eye on the headline cards that we talked about at the top of the board there. That's going to determine your scoring, and you're going to determine your strategy to score in each turn. At the same time, you also want to keep working towards control of different countries, these contested countries across the map. This is accomplished by maximizing your influence to 6 and protecting it from being taken down by foreign influence and armies. There's that tug-of-war aspect of the game. You're going to be moving in, you're going to be putting down your influence, your opponent's going to be putting their influence in there, and you're going to be trying to see who can get to be the first to 6. 6 is the magic number here because once you have that, once you reach that, you're going to have that country under control. You're going to take that contested country card into your hand, and that will enhance your capabilities to further expand to other countries around the map, while also giving you card effects that you can do other actions. But when you do those actions, they may also give your opponent a reactionary response. So I really like how that cause and effect is modeled into those cards. Yeah, I want to do this, I want to get this advantage, but guess what? My opponent may get a reaction and response, and I think that's kind of neat, that little risk versus reward. Now, once an opponent controls a contested country, you cannot gain that card back that they've already taken, but you can knock the influence down from 6 to 5 and lower. This is done by moving an army into the country, and you will immediately drop the influence from 6 to 5. However, To protect that, you can place an army in the country, and when the two armies meet, they just cancel each other out, and it does not touch the influence. But if the opponent comes in with two armies and you only got one, well, one army each will cancel out. The other army will knock the influence down from 6 to 5. So something to keep in mind is making sure you have military presence in those countries that you have control of. And lastly, there are two major scoring turns, one at turn 10 and one at turn 20, and that's where you'll determine the winner of the game. Now, when it comes to the army versus army bit in response to country control, I don't see this as direct armed conflict between Russia and NATO. Instead, I just see it as two military presences and pressure mixed with some saber rattling that will either cancel each other out or influence the country that you're trying to influence to go your way. And I like how the headline cards are drawn from the player's hands. This allows you to try to formulate a scoring strategy moving forward so that you can begin to work towards controlling countries that will score on headline cards in subsequent turns as well as the current turn. This keeps the randomness to a minimum and the strategies are determined more by the players. I really do like that. And the actions and reactions of some of those cards we talked about before, I really like that because it has you weighing the risk versus reward, and I think that's pretty cool. When you want to do something that's really advantageous to you, sometimes it will be, and there won't be any repercussion from your opponent. Other times there will be, and I think that's kind of neat because you may be in a corner where you need to do something, but you really don't want to deal with the response. So I think that's pretty neat to have that extra little layer in there. Fans of Twilight Struggle will most likely enjoy this game. It's not the same deep card-driven game that we've got with Twilight Struggle. That's a good thing, because there's a place for that and there's a place for games like this. I think this could be a stepping stone for people that want to play Twilight Struggle but may be intimidated by it. This gives you kind of a sense of how the game works, the similar kind of mechanics and the similar theme, and it draws you in. Once you're drawn in more by a theme, you're more apt to go and try out another game. So you get them in with Europe Divided, and then you hook them for the big fish with Twilight Struggle. I think this is a good stepping stone that anybody can jump into because it's not a hard game to learn. And after a couple turns, you definitely got the flow and you understand how the scoring works, and you can start thinking ahead and planning for the scoring for later phases of the game. Bottom line is, this is yet another winner for David Thompson, who has just been crushing it with successful design after design, and Europe Divided is one to definitely check out, in my opinion. Well, I hope that helps you guys out if you've been curious about this one. If you have any comments or questions, post them down below. Thanks for tuning in, guys. See you next time.